When you care about someone deeply, you start believing even their worst moments must have some hidden kindness behind them. That's what I used to tell myself about Emma. We'd been together for 3 years. Quiet, steady years that I thought stood for something real. I wasn't the charming, larger-than-life type who swept her off her feet. I was a steady one, the man who showed up every single day. Birthdays, bad days, those nights she cried without knowing why. I was always there. So when she asked me to go with her to her friend's engagement party, I took it as a good sign. Maybe we were moving forward. I wore my best shirt, brought a small gift for a friend, even helped decorate before the guests arrived. Everything felt warm, effortless, until it didn't. Someone, half joking, asked, "So, Emma, when are you finally introducing your boyfriend to your parents?" The table erupted with laughter. I waited, expecting her to respond with something sweet or teasing. Instead, she smirked, glanced at me, and said, "Introduce him? Please." For a second, everything went still. Then everyone laughed again. Everyone except me. It was one of those moments where sound feels warped, where laughter stretches too long and too loud, until you can't tell if it's coming from around you or from inside your own chest. She brushed it off, patted my shoulder, and said, "Oh, come on, don't take it so seriously." But I did, because that wasn't just a joke. It was a statement. A quiet reminder that I wasn't someone she ever pictured standing beside her family, her parents, or her future. On the drive home, she hummed along to the radio as if nothing had happened. I stared out the window, trying to convince myself I was overthinking. Maybe it was her humor. Maybe I was being too sensitive. But somewhere deep down, I already knew the truth. If you have convinced someone to see your worth, you've already surrendered it. The days after that party felt hollow. We still texted, met for dinner, smiled for photos, but something had cracked. Every laugh felt rehearsed, every hug distant. I waited for her to bring it up, to say, "Hey, I'm sorry, that wasn't fair." But she never did. Instead, she started to drift, short replies, sudden headaches, busy weekends. I told myself she just needed space. But space soon started to look a lot like disinterest. One night, while watching a movie at her place, she got a text. She turned her phone face down so fast it was impossible not to notice. When I asked who it was, she said, "Just a friend." That word, friend, started showing up a lot after that. Friend from work. Friend she used to know. Friends who made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in months. I didn't want to become the paranoid boyfriend, so I stayed quiet. But silence comes at a cost. It eats away at your self-respect, one unasked question at a time. Then one evening, I decided to surprise her with dinner. Her car was outside, lights on, soft music leaking through the walls. But when I knocked, no one answered. After a few minutes, I called. No reply. Through the half-open blinds, I saw her silhouette. And another, broader shoulders, a man's voice, low and confident. He said something that made her laugh. That same laugh from the engagement party, the one that used to be mine. I didn't go inside. I didn't need to. Betrayal doesn't always arrive with proof. Sometimes it's been whispering in small humiliations long before you finally hear it clearly. I left the food on her doorstep and walked away. The next morning, she texted like nothing had happened. "Sorry I missed you last night. Fell asleep early." That was the moment it clicked. She wasn't cruel. She was careless. And somehow that's worse. Because cruelty acknowledges you exist. Carelessness erases you completely. So I stopped asking, stopped explaining, stopped showing up. And she didn't notice. Not for days, not even for weeks. When someone fades from your life, you expect a dramatic ending, a fight, a tearful goodbye, some kind of closure. But in reality, it just stops. The calls end, the texts slow, and the silence becomes so normal, you almost forget what noise sounded like. That's how it ended with Emma. I didn't block her, didn't make a scene, didn't even announce my absence. I simply stepped back. No more good morning texts. No more checking in. No more waiting for her to remember I was still there. And for a while, she didn't. Weeks passed. I poured myself into work, the gym, old friends I neglected while orbiting her world. I started laughing again. This time it felt real. Then, out of nowhere, she called. Her voice was light, casual. "Hey, haven't heard from you in a while. Everything okay?" I almost laughed. Everything was finally okay, because I no longer cared whether she understood what she'd done. But she didn't stop there. The next day, she showed up outside my office, pretending it was a coincidence. Her hair was tied back, eyes searching. "You just disappeared," she said, smiling faintly like she expected me to joke. "I didn't," I replied. She looked confused. I held her gaze and said, "You once laughed at the idea of introducing me to your parents. Now I understand why." For the first time, she didn't have a comeback, just silence. The kind that feels heavy, final. I could see it in her eyes then, the realization that she had taken something for granted that wasn't coming back. She reached out, maybe to touch my arm, maybe to say sorry. I stepped back. "You don't have to explain," I said quietly. "You already did that night at the party." Then I turned and walked away. She never called again, and I never looked back. People think closure comes from confrontation. But sometimes, closure is simply peace. The kind that arrives when you stop being the punchline in someone else's story and start writing your own.